have Jean-Pierre and George Jacques come up, please. And of course, yes, sir, you too.
Just behave yourself when you're up there.
All right, well, this isn't a formal class. This is a presentation can you tell? Can you guess?
Toast?
Yeah, I think you're right. Now, let me talk about networking and connecting with people. I met Mr. Wallace back in, back last spring maybe. And then he became a John Birch Society member. He told me about this gentleman. I didn't know he looked like this when I first met him. And I met him in a diner, and I asked him if he could come to camp and do a presentation, and he said, I think I can. I said, what if we go to the Mason house? You know the fellow? He said, yeah, he's a good friend of mine. Mr. Jean-Pierre, call him up. So we called him up, so now I'm a friend of Jean-Pierre. You see, one thing leads to another.
Yeah.
So thank you, Earl, back there for starting the ball to roll.
Yeah.
Gentlemen here have done a whole lot to keep the name and the reason Uncle Sam Wilson alive. It isn't so much the man, but also what he stood for. A man who was a patriot. He was a young man, 9-year-old boy, when Paul Revere drove by his home, helped to spread the alarm, and committees of safety. And he wanted to go to Bunker Hill, but you're only 9 years old. Stay home. He was a courier for the committees of safety during the war. He became a successful businessman, very benevolent individual, and he'll tell you how the Uncle Sam story. So George is the author of The Life and Times of Uncle Sam and Uncle Sam Center. Now Jean-Pierre is the author of, and by the way, he's also a World War II veteran. You remember that movie? Was it Flies of Our Fathers? He did make, he lived it, okay? And Jean-Pierre, by the way, he told me that he joined the French Navy to fight the communists in Algeria back in the late 50s and 60s. They sent him to the South Pacific to fight coconuts and palm trees, right? Anyway, Jean-Pierre and his lovely wife are from France originally, as you can probably tell his accent. That's not a Brooklyn accent, you know? But he has a great love of this country. And he came here originally to help French people appreciate it because his father was a World War I orphan. Both his parents were killed, their grandparents were killed during the war. And he came to find out that Uncle Sam was a real person. He comes out here within a day, he buys the house out here. And anyway, and of course, Fred Polinsch, Uncle Sam. They have a dream and a vision of having an Uncle Sam Center in Troy. And it's not just about a man that looks like this. It's about what America stood for and people like Sam Wilson. Now, the John Birch Society is named after a Baptist missionary turned soldier, and Robert Welch named it after him because he looked like he was the best of America, the best type of the ideal American. And I think Uncle Sam Wilson fits that description. So I want my daughter to come up, and Jean-Pierre has the largest collection of lithographs and Uncle Sam memorabilia probably in the world, he and his wife. He's only been collecting for about 6 short years. He has a poster museum in his home on his, I guess estate isn't the right word, but on his property. You have to call him up, he's not open to the public. But he also has one here in Mason. And when I first met him, I said, this is a treasure. And I was able to find folks who would work weekends. It's not going to be open maybe for a while, but I said we have enough volunteers to come up here on weekends and keep this wonderful little treasure gem open. And my daughter, Christina, see, I train my children, right? And I have an eye for certain things. And I missed this. We walked by a store not far from our house, and they had a July 4th display. And she says, look, Dad, look, a poster with Uncle Sam. This is about 100 years old. It was an Uncle Sam mailboat. In New Hampshire, Lake Winnipesaukee, and I said, "Oh, we went in there. Is this for sale?" When when July 4th comes and goes. Oh, okay. We can put it at auction. So we put a silent bid, and we got it. So I want Christina to present it to Jacques. Jean-Pierre, because it was her eye. And we also want to present his wife. And him with Uncle Sam t-shirts. So there's a large and a medium. So with that, I'll turn it over to gentlemen. You can take your seats and you can turn it over to you. Thank you.
Greetings. I was born on July 4th, 1776, and the Declaration of Independence is my birth certificate. The bloodlines of the world run in my veins, for I offered freedom to the oppressed. I am many things to many people. I am the nation. I am more than 300 million living souls and ghosts of millions who have died for me. I am Nathan Hale and Paul Revere. I stood at Lexington and fired the shot around the world. I am Washington, Adams, Jefferson, and Patrick Henry. I am Lee and Grant and Abe Lincoln. I am remembered the Alamo, the Maine, Pearl Harbor, and September 11, 2001. When freedom called, I answered and stayed till it was over there. I left my heroic dead in Flanders Field, on the rock of Corregidor, the hills of Korea, the jungles of Vietnam, the deserts of Iraq, and the World Trade Center. I am forest, field, mountain, and desert. I am the quiet villages and the cities that never sleep. I am the ballad dropped in the box, the roar of the crowds, and the voice of a choir singing in a cathedral. You see the lights of Christmas in me and hear the strains of Auld Lang Syne when the calendar turns. Yes, I am the nation, and these are the things that I am. I was conceived in freedom, and God willing, in freedom I will spend the rest of my days. May I possess always the integrity, the courage, and the strength to keep myself unshackled, to remain a symbol of freedom and a beacon of liberty to the world. This is my wish, my goal, my prayer, 235 years after my birth. I'm Uncle Sam, and proud I am. I want to tell you the story of our Star-Spangled Uncle Sam. When I was a boy, I lived on a farm near Boston, Massachusetts, in the town of Menotomy. We were colonies then, 13, that belonged to the Great Britain. The British soldiers made fun of us by calling us Yankee Doodles. Would you join me in singing, I'm a Yankee Doodle dandy? I'm a Yankee Doodle dandy, a Yankee Doodle do or die. A real live nephew of my Uncle Sam, born on the 4th of July. I've got a Yankee Doodle sweetheart, she's my Yankee Doodle joy. The Yankee Doodle went to London just to ride the ponies. I am that Yankee Doodle boy. As I was saying, my mom and dad, they had a farm near Boston, Massachusetts, in the town of Menotomy. And this map shows some other features and cities important to my story. You have Boston, Mason, Troy, New York, and here is the Mohawk River coming into the Hudson and coming right down the Atlantic Ocean around Cape Cod and come right back to Boston. Well, the British had taken over Boston, so and the British Navy prevented ships from sailing in and out of Boston Harbor. So there was much discord, and people were angry about this fact. We couldn't get our food. Well, on the 18th of April in 1775, Paul Revere came riding past our farmhouse to warn us the British are coming. Early the next morning, the shot heard around the world. Our American Revolution, our War of Independence began in the Boston area. First at Lexington, then Concord, and then Bunker Hill. Minutemen were fighting the British that we might be free. A few months later, George Washington took command to become the general of our army, just across the river from Boston. All this took place near where the Pilgrims landed in America, many years earlier. Which leads us into another song, My Country 'Tis of Thee. The right key.
My country 'tis of thee, sweet land of thee I sing, land where my
timeline showing you when this all took place. Now here's where we are right now in 2011. Columbus came to the Americas in 1492. Well, I'm starting my story and telling you what happened just about right here. On the 18th of April, 1775, Paul Revere came riding past our farmhouse. Well, a year later, we declared our independence from Great Britain. On July 4th, 1776, Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration, wrote these famous words, probably the most famous phrase of the Declaration of Independence. Of course, the Declaration of Independence begins when in the course of human events, and then continues on down to, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thank you. We hold these truths to be obvious, clear, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed, that they are furnished by their Creator, God. God created us and furnished us with certain unalienable rights, absolute rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You know, work, property, employment, what you want to do with your life, the pursuit of happiness. And then concludes and signed by John Hancock. A year later, on June 14th, 1777, the Continental Congress decided that we needed to have a common flag to unify our army in our fight for independence. So they decided that our flag should consist of 13 red and white stripes, and that there be 13 white stars in a field of blue. The starlight, the flag that I have shown here, is known as the Betsy Ross flag. And we now celebrate June 14th as Flag Day with parades and many other celebrations. In that June 14th region, I parade in 3 parades in the New York area. In the Troy Flag Day Parade, which is the biggest in the country, and then in Saratoga Springs and in Burnt Hills. And we celebrate Flag Day really big. Even some of the schools in Troy, been attending a school 14 in Troy. They celebrate Red, White, and Blue Day, and they have just a big celebration. And I've been attending that for about a number of years, and the kids are really excited about our flag and celebration of our flag. Elementary school kids. Well, we won the war, and the British surrendered to General Washington at Yorktown, Virginia. Yankee Doodle went to town, or Riding on a Pony was the song that was played by our soldiers when the British surrendered. This song was written many years earlier by a British surgeon at Port Craylo, Rensselaer, New York, just down the river from Troy, New York. And Rensselaer, New York, is known as the home of Yankee Doodle. Now, this song, as I'm saying, has many verses, and it was written to poke fun of our soldiers, but we use this song as a pep song, as a rallying song for our troops in our fight for independence. So how about singing this song with me? Just this one verse. There are about 100 verses on this song, but let's sing one. Yankee Doodle went to town, riding on a pony, stuck a feather in his hat and called it macaroni. Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle dandy, mind the music and the steppin' with the girls be handy. Thank you very much. And incidentally, Paul Revere, this song was written during the war, during the French and Indian Wars, preceding our fight for independence. And believe that Paul Revere, from what I read on him, he was down as a member of the militia fighting against the French. And he was in Rensselaer at Fort Craylo, which was like a base, an army base for the soldiers. And It still exists today, Fort Clayton. You can go and visit it, but it's not exactly a fort that you would consider a fort. But it at least has artifacts and shows and tells about what happened back here. We won the war, and our Constitution was signed a few years following the war in 1787. The Declaration of Independence offered the promise of a government to provide order with liberty. The Constitution fulfills these promises by providing for a system of government controlled by you, the people. In the preamble to the Constitution, we have, "We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union that is better than it was under the Articles of Confederation, establish justice, fair laws, ensure domestic tranquility." We want to have peace and order within our communities, within our country.
Provide for the common defense.
Oh, I missed it. Oh, yes, we want our nation to be strong against foreign enemies and to promote the general welfare. We want our people to be working and prosperous in our country.
And secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity.
Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Benjamin Franklin, a member of the Constitutional Convention, he rose and spoke during the convention and said, "The longer I live, the more convincing proofs I see of this truth, that God governs in the affairs of men. For if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, is it probable that a nation can rise without his aid? We have been assured in the sacred writing that except the Lord build the house, we labor in vain that build it." George Washington became our first president of our United States. And our country at that time, our 13 colonies became our 13 states. So our 13 states, we have New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut, New York, New Jersey and Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia, North and South Carolina, and Georgia. The boundaries of our country went from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mississippi River, and from British North America, which we now know as Canada, to Spanish Florida. Disney World was in Florida back in those days. So, but we bought Florida and we took it over, and so Disney's now in the United States. Correct? In Florida. So the largest city in our country at that time, in 1790, when President Washington was Philadelphia. New York was our second largest city, and Boston was our third largest city. Our country was growing, and many people were coming to America to be free. My brother and I, we walked from Mason, New Hampshire, where we grew up as teenagers, and we walked to Troy, New York, to start a business. Our first business, when we walked to Troy, and our first business was making bricks, and then we packed salted meat in barrels. And business was good, very good. My mom and dad and my brothers and sisters moved to Troy. My nieces and nephews worked for us, and I became known as Uncle Sam to the workers, to the people of Troy, and throughout the surrounding area. George Washington, our first president, and as Earl pointed out, he ended his oath of office by saying, "So help me God." George Washington also made a couple other comments saying that it's the duty of all nations to acknowledge the providence of Almighty God, to obey His will, to be grateful for His benefits, and to humbly implore His protection and favor. George Washington served 2 terms, and in his farewell address he said, "Be united, be Americans." John Adams was our second president. John Adams and his wife were the first to move into a new house at our new capital, Washington, D.C. Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence, he was our third president. He bought land west of the Mississippi River, and it became known as the Louisiana Purchase, and it doubled our country in size. Our country was expanding now over to the Rocky Mountains, from the Atlantic Ocean to the Rocky Mountains. Haven't quite reached from sea to shining sea, but would you join me in singing this song? Oh, beautiful, for spacious sky, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesty, above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crowned thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. Thank you. Our fourth president was James Madison. He was known as the father of our Constitution. While President Madison was in office, our second war with Great Britain was started. It was known as the War of 1812. I sold barrels of meat for our government, and I wrote U.S. on the barrels that were for our soldiers, that were for the United States government. One of my workers was asked, well, what does the U.S. stand for? Well, he made a joke of it by saying, well, it means it belongs to Uncle Sam. And so the joke was spread and continued wherever the barrels of meat were taken throughout the country. The war continued, and the British decided they're going to end this war and win it by capturing Washington, D.C. Here again we have the eastern seaboard and Chesapeake Bay, Potomac River, Washington. The British sailed up to Chesapeake, marched across Maryland into Washington, D.C., and captured and burned the city. President Madison and his wife escaped, but then the British returned to their ships and sailed up towards Baltimore. Along the way, they captured a gentleman by the name of Francis Scott Key, and he became a witness to the Battle of Fort McHenry, which protected the city of Baltimore. The British began the battle on September 13, 1814, and it went all day and all through the night. And by the dawn's early light, Francis Scott Key saw that our flag was still flying. We won the battle. The British knew that, and they released their prisoners. And Francis Scott Key returned to Baltimore to write the words of a song which has become our national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banners. The song was originally titled The Battle of Fort McHenry, and it tells the story. It tells the story of the Battle of Fort McHenry. We won't sing the song, but I wanted to point it out. This song, the Star-Spangled Banner, has 4 verses, and throughout it's telling the story of the battle and what took place. And just to point out, it says like, whose broad stripes and bright stars, and over the ramparts. But the flag that was flying over Fort McHenry was this one. This is a poster I obtained from Fort McHenry about 15 years ago, before the flag, the Star-Spangled Banner, had been repaired. And this is what it looked like. It was torn and ripped. Some features of this flag, the Star-Spangled Banner. This flag, if you notice, has 15 stripes and 15 stars. And this flag that flew over Fort McHenry was 42 feet in length and 30 feet across. You could possibly just lay that flag down here and, took out the post, but it's a big flag, and this flag could be seen several miles off from the Fort McHenry.
My dad's garage is as big as that flag.
Okay, thank you. So, now I have 15 stripes here. It's 30 feet, so each stripe is that's about 2 feet. And the stars, the circle, if you had drew a circle, it would be a 2-foot diameter circle to inscribe the stars. So this flag could be seen miles offshore. And making this presentation one time, and a gentleman spoke to me afterwards, and he was from the Coast Guard. He was an instructor down there. And he said, did you know that out in Baltimore Harbor, there's a buoy there, and supposedly that's the ship, that's where the ship was located that Francis Scott Key saw the flag. And it's about 2 miles from the port. So with the rocket's red glare and the bombs bursting in air, and the flag being so large, it was obviously that it could be seen. You see, the commander in the defense of Baltimore, they sunk ships a mile or 2 miles around the harbor there so that the British couldn't come in and get close to their ships. It was after the war that Congress decided that we needed to have only 13 stripes in our flag, representing our 13 original states, but that there should be a star for each state in the Union. And so then we have the 3 flags essentially of our country, the Betsy Ross flag with the 13 stars in the circle, the 15 stripes and 15 stars, and our Star-Spangled Banner, and our flag with the 13 stripes and 50 stars now. Our grand old flag that we have, the Stars and Stripes. The Pledge of Allegiance was written and honors our flag and honors our country. It was written in 1492 by Francis Bellamy. He wrote the Pledge of Allegiance in celebration of Columbus coming to America, the 400th anniversary of Columbus coming to America. He said, I, me, an individual, a committee of one, pledge, dedicate all my worldly goods, allegiance, my love and devotion to the flag. The flag, a symbol of our country and a symbol of freedom, of the united. That means we have all come together. States, we now have 50 individual communities, states, but we're all united. Of America, our country. And to the republic. A republic is what we have. We elect representatives to govern us. And each of us, we have 3 representatives. We have a congressman and 2 senators. For which it stands. The flag stands for freedom. One nation. We are one nation made from many peoples around the world, under God, our Creator. Indivisible, not capable of being divided, united. With liberty, which is freedom. The right to live our lives without fear or threats from our government. And justice, fair play for all people in our country. For all. It's your country as much as it's mine. The Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like you help me honor our flag by singing this song. You're a grand old flag. You're a grand old flag, you're a high-flying flag, and forever in peace and way. You're the emblem of the land I love, the home of the free and the brave. Every heart beats true under red, white, and blue, where there's never a blue star flag. But should old acquaintance be forgot, keep your eye on the grand old flag. Thank you very much. This song and Yankee Doodle, I'm a Yankee Doodle Dandy, were written by George M. Cohan about 100 years ago. And he was a very patriotic gentleman and a Broadway star and actor and performing and writer of plays. these songs, these two songs are probably his most famous that have come. They're over 100 years old. Now all that I'm doing, and as a result of the war, we obtained a new song, our national anthem, which is the Star-Spangled Banner. An anthem, a song of love and praise for our country. And a new symbol, me, Uncle Sam. And all because of the joke that was made by one of my workers. He united an Uncle and Sam. If my name was Fred, it just wouldn't have worked. But here, Uncle Sam, and Uncle Sam is a symbol of our country also. And people know Uncle Sam throughout the world. And I've met a number of people who recognize, in fact, more people from around the world recognize me than do here in the United States sometimes. Because I do march in a number of parades throughout, almost 20 parades per year in the Albany, New York area. And we've been as far as Brattleboro and up here in parades. All that I'm doing, trying to show you, is put things together and being patriotic, love for our country. The first symbol of our country was the bald eagle. Benjamin Franklin wanted the turkey to be the symbol of our country, but John Adams won in the debate, and the symbol of our country became the
turkey. That's funny to me now, turkey.
Because it was, yeah, turkey's
Turkey.
well, I don't know about back then. Okay, I don't know about back then if they tasted just as good. And why I say that, excuse me, I'm very dry. It's because, you know, a long time ago, the eagle and the turkey were very good friends. You could look up and you could see the eagle and the turkey flying side by side. One day, the turkey said to the eagle, let's go down and get something to eat. So the two birds flew down and landed near a cow eating some corn. Welcome, said the cow. Help yourself to some corn. Well, this took the two birds by surprise. They always had to work for their food. Well, they dug in. Why? Yes, the turkey said, why? Why are you willing to share your corn with us? Well, we have plenty to eat here. Mr. Farmer grows all our food. We don't have to work. And another thing, that barn over there, he built that barn over so we can stay in the barn. Well, the eagle and the turkey, you know, it sort of blew their mind because they always had to work for their food and shelter. Well, they ate their fill. And the turkey said to the eagle, you know, maybe we should just stay here. We can have all the food we want, and we can sleep in that barn, and we don't have to build any nests anymore. And besides, I'm getting tired of working for a living. Well, the eagle said, I don't know about all this. You know, it just sounds too good to be true. I find it hard to believe. And besides, I like flying high and free. I like the challenge of making my own living and making my own way. Well, the turkey said, well, I'm going to stay here with it. And the eagle said, well, I'm going to have to leave because I just enjoy my freedom. So the eagle soared off into the wild blue yonder. It went pretty good for the turkey. He ate all he wanted, and he put on a little bit of weight. And no exercise. No exercise, and things were going great. Then one day. You know the rest of the story.
Tell the story. Tell the rest of the story.
Okay, then one day, the turkey heard the farmer say to his wife, let's have roast turkey for dinner tonight. Well, the turkey heard that and decided it's time to check out. And when he attempted to fly, he wasn't strong enough. All he could do was flutter. Yes, that night, the farmer and his family, there's no young kids here, right? The farmer and his family had roast turkey for dinner. And The farmer and his family had to roast turkey for dinner. You see, when you give up the challenges of life for security, for the pursuit of happiness, you give up your freedom. And that's the reason that eagles fly and turkeys flutter. I tell this story through the schools and from kindergarten on up, and telling that story and coming to the part where it's what happened to the turkey, and the kids go, oh. They ate him? Yeah. Well, yeah. So that's what happens. That's why we now eat turkeys. That's why turkeys are better to eat. Thank you very much. Thank you. The motto of our country is "In God We Trust." It's right on your money. You know, the last act that Abraham Lincoln signed while he was president, right prior to his assassination, was that "In God We Trust" be inscribed on all our national coin. Francis Bellamy, in the 4th verse of the Star-Spangled Banner, he wrote, "And this be our motto, in God is our trust." And the Star-Spangled Banner, in the last verse, may wave. And I missed it. But all I'm doing here and telling you about is being patriotic and love for our country. Thomas Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain absolute rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Let's continue with the freedoms that we enjoy in our country. The freedoms that come from God, that He's furnished us. I'm going to close, and would you join me in singing this, "God Bless America"?
Let's stand for this one.
And let it be our prayer, God continue to bless our country and give us our freedom.